Welcome to a special clips edition of What Gets Measured, where we bring you the best insights from our previous episodes, tailored specifically for customer success teams. Today's theme is mastering client success in ad agencies. I've combed over our entire catalog of episodes to detail the intricate dance between agencies and their clients and the pivotal role of communication in this relationship. We'll be diving into some of our most insightful past episodes, covering topics like effective client engagement, data storytelling, how every interaction is a sales opportunity, and much more. So let's get to it. I wanted to begin this episode defining account client management itself and exploring the misconceptions about the responsibilities and perceived realities of these roles. When I sat down with Faizan Ali, an account director at Young and Rubicam, he colorfully underlined how these roles are crucial, not only in adding value, but in creating efficient processes between the agency and client and even selling the work itself.
There are many misconceptions that account managers face, but mostly we hear that, account managers do not add value and they are just the delivery person, which is complete. I truly believe that account managers are absolutely essential. Without them, there wouldn't be any sanity in the agency because they're there to calm the storms, they massage egos, they put everything in place, and most importantly, they do help sell the work. I think that account managers or account leads or whoever should be the ones who should create processes because they are touching everyone so they know what works and what is the most efficient way of going from A to B in an agency as well.
What Faizan is saying here highlights the importance and interconnected nature of client success in account management and agencies, and the position's impact in maintaining satisfaction and expectations on all sides, which leads perfectly into the importance of client and account teams, setting the tone with clients from the very beginning. When I sat down with Kylie Kulak, the head of client engagement at Struck, she explained how she views account and client teams as business advisors for clients.
Our client partners under the client engagement team are really meant to be the business advisors for our clients. We're not just going to be the ones who send the meeting notes or who take them out to lunch. There's elements of that, but it's really being a strategic partner from the very beginning of our first new business conversation with them and understanding that we're going to guide them through the relationship and help them achieve their goals.
And then later in the episode, she detailed how kickoff is the most important time to set tone, expectations, and lay out the roles and relationships with clients.
When we have any client kickoff, it involves a pretty in-depth half day or day immersion, kind of really get to know the team, get to know the product. If it's a product, if it's a destination, we're doing it on site. We need to make sure that we understand the brand and the experience that we're trying to deliver.
Kylie is emphasizing the importance of proactive client engagement strategies and getting everyone on the same page. So then, what about the dashboard? Let's listen to Michael Kaminsky, founder of the marketing mix modeling consulting firm Recast, about the importance of knowing how to measure the effectiveness of client campaigns and how to report on it.
Where I spend a lot of time focused really is on that very tight intersection of efficiency and effectiveness. When we spend $100, what does that actually get us? How do we measure that correctly? How do we use that to make decisions? How do we make smart bets? That's the corner of the world that I tend to operate in the realm of marketing effectiveness and efficiency.
What Michael is touching on is a critical client pain point with agencies, the nexus between effectiveness and efficiency. And as the story about attribution in digital advertising continues to evolve, Michael believes the future of measuring effectiveness is omni-channel and more diverse ways to measure lift.
In the last 15 years, we saw the rise of e-commerce. We saw a lot of great, amazing brands built on the back of running Google and Facebook ads and building brands that way. Very cool. But I do think it's an aberration. I think the future is omni-channel. going to be biased towards the channels that are easiest to track, which are often, the most bottom of funnel digital channels, which means that you won't be able to spend into these other more upper funnel channels that are harder to track. And that's going to leave you in a really bad position. Maybe you can scale the business up to some point, only spending on Meta, Facebook, but at some point you're going to tap out that channel and you're going to need to go somewhere else. And if you don't have a good holistic measurement methodology in place, it's going to be really hard to do that.
So then the question for client success teams is, how do you report on the effectiveness of campaigns? Michael has some really good advice on how the KPIs you set for attribution can actually hinder experimentation, and how he thinks the future way to measure marketing is going to have to pivot away from touches and toward multimodal measurement.
I've seen this over and over and over again with a lot of the brands that I work with, where they get stuck. The finance team and the executive team only knows about last touch attribution. And then when it comes to doing anything else, they can't, because the finance and the executive team is like, well, everything else looks terrible on last touch basis, but that doesn't mean it's actually a bad channel. It just means the measurement method is actually bad. And so that can be a real problem. And so as people are thinking about the future, I want them to be thinking about, okay, how do we get out of this world where we're just doing everything on last touch attribution, which has always been flawed and is only getting worse.
That last clip from Michael on attribution hints at part of the trouble with what to include in a report for clients. But when I sat down with Courtney Lee, the head of practice for web analytics and business intelligence at Nimble Gravity, she had something even more troubling to say about reporting.
The biggest horror story is when I start working with a client, or when I've worked at companies where you start to ask questions about, okay, where would I find this data? And then you start realizing that they have every single tool you could ever get. So they might have multiple web analytics tools and multiple heat mapping tools. And then they also have every kind of marketing tool and like 100 Salesforce instances. And then trying to make sense of all of it, not having a source of truth, where half of the team is like, no, we believe Adobe Analytics because that's what we like. But the other team says, no, we use the Google Analytics data because that's what we like. And of course, they're not going to match. That has to be the biggest horror story, because you can't make actionable decisions confidently when everyone's on a different page.
So if everyone has their own truth and toolkit when they look at marketing data, what do we do? Courtney has some advice on how to get out of dashboards and get fearless with data.
I think the business intelligence kind of comes in with, like you said, people will look at their dashboard that has like every data point possible. And the business intelligence is really putting that in a format that, instead of it just being, here's every metric you've ever tracked in this messy dashboard, the business intelligence really comes in with, let's put this in a format so anyone who comes to look at this can make these insights from what they're seeing. Don't be intimidated by data. All you have to do is start asking questions about what you're seeing in the data. And as you ask more questions, you will uncover the story along the way.
This interview highlights the frustrations around analytics, the important role of client teams exchanging compelling data stories in their reports, and how difficult it can be to measure campaign effectiveness. Which is a perfect time to lead into how the responsibility for advertising success doesn't solely fall on the agency. Clients need to have their sales and marketing teams aligned as well, and, well, there can be a bit of a gap here.
We're a consultancy that is set up to help get marketers and their sales channels, their customer-facing channels, on the same page. And we recognize that that's niche, but anybody who's worked in sales and marketing recognizes how big the gap can be sometimes between those two parts of the organization.
That's Chris Wallace, founder of the brand alignment consultancy Interview, talking about his work in a previous episode about bridging the gap between sales and marketing. This client-side gap can have negative effects on any advertising agency work, and the sad part is the gap is a gigantic waste of resources and very hard to pin down and wrestle with. Chris says his work is akin to insurance.
We jokingly call what we do marketing insurance, because if you're going to spend all this money to drive demand, to drive, lead generation and drive people into retail stores or calls into call centers or whatever your frontline touch points are, whatever your customer contact points are, if you're going to invest that money, but you don't make sure that those links in the chain are strong, you set yourself up to drive a tremendous amount of waste.
That interview with Chris really rang some bells for me. Brands can fund the best ad campaigns, logos, slogans, swag, events, landing pages, websites, all of it. But if there is a gap between the marketing and the sales, no amount of brilliance could break through that barrier. Something we've experienced as consumers a lot. Big promises, small deliverables. But it hints at the power of selling and marketing. Stories, narratives, relationships, communication, these are powerful currencies we exchange in ad land and offline. If you're in advertising, you're in sales. So learning how to sell well is the true remit of agencies. Which leads into the last clip I'll share from an interview with sales consultant, comedian, and bon vivant Stephen Steers. And it's all about stories and narratives and managing expectations and how every client touchpoint can be a sales moment for your agency.
The whole reason you tell any story or any reason an ad resonates with somebody or a piece of copy is because you're better helping your audience tell their own story. So the reason people are not good at selling is because they're trying to tell the story about their product and leading with the features, bells and whistles and ROAS and this, that, and the other thing, which is cool. That's stuff we want to talk about if we're doing advertising. But tell me about the results, right? Tell me about what other people you've worked with have done and why they came to you, and humanize what you're doing. That's the thing that people should be concentrating more time on. I think in advertising and in marketing in general, we expect people to just come to us because we have a thing. And what the real crux of this is if you want that, that's fine, but you have to be able to tell the stories that get your customers excited to buy. Whenever I'm working with any client and I go over their whole sales process to find any gaps inside of it, or go over scripts and look at things, and like I'm looking at this email sequence or this ad campaign people want to run, I asked even the founder last week, I was going over some of her emails and I was like, would you answer this email if you got it yourself? And she's like, well, I'm not the ideal audience. Like, I'm not the right person for this. But I was like, no. Would you answer this email? And then I read it out loud to her and she's like, no, I don't think I would. And it's like, then why the hell would we send this?
Getting new business in an agency can be tough, but it all goes into connection and back to those relationships. You have to be able to tell stories that connect, stories that inspire action, even in an email. This episode is great because Stephen details how to craft compelling pitches and conduct successful sales calls that win and retain clients. If you're in advertising and promising to create interesting work for your clients, see every touch point as a marketing vehicle for the agency. Walk the talk, lead by example. If you want someone interested, you have to be interesting. If it's all about stories, tell yours well. That wraps up our special compilation episode on mastering client success in ad agencies. We hope these insights from our past episodes have provided you with valuable strategies and ideas to implement in your role. For more detailed discussions, check out the full episodes linked in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe to What Gets Measured, share this episode with your colleagues, and join our NinjaCat newsletter for more exclusive content tailored to customer success professionals. Until next time, I'll see you on the internet.